Janie Phillips, I'm the president, vice president, sorry, Sid, of Carroll Hartley Conservation Area, and we want to begin the meeting with the Wabanaki land acknowledgement. The Friends of Harriet L. Hartley Conservation Area acknowledges that the intertidal land and waters and all its critters and flora, the mergansers, the Bonaparte gulls, the mussels, razor clams, bladderwhack, and alewives that we currently seek to protect was taken without consent from Penobscot Nation. The Penobscot, along with the other members of the Wabanaki Confederacy, the Passamaquoddy, Mi'kmaq, and Maliseet, have stewarded this land and called it home since time immemorial. We acknowledge the responsibility we bear to actively support Wabanaki sovereignty. This land acknowledgement is only a first step, and we commit to transforming the ways in which we currently act that perpetuate a culture that objectifies life. We commit to a future of the conservation area where biodiversity thrives, the waters are healthy, the fish run, the birds nest, and the eelgrass returns. And I'd like to introduce our president, Sid Block, who is not with us in spirit. Hi, Sid.
Well, hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. The view over my shoulder is my son's view from his home in British Columbia. Anyway, good afternoon. It is my pleasure and my honor to welcome all of you, those here at the Belfast Library and those like myself on Zoom, to this annual meeting of the Friends of the Harriet L. Hartley Conservation Area. First, we are here to celebrate. We have achieved our primary goals of defeating Nordic and preserving our ownership of the Harriet L. Hartley Intertidal Conservation Area. This board is profoundly grateful for the support each of you have contributed to these successes. Nonetheless, while active and even now in its death throes, Nordic has caused great damage to certain individuals and the community at large. It leaves us financially indebted to our advisors and consultants. Nordic and its supporters have left a moraine of toxic debris on our landscape. Debris we are determined to clean up. Kim Tucker will describe our actions in the two remaining legal issues, the harmful slander of title by Nordic itself, and the equally harmful and illegal attempt of taking by eminent domain by the city of Belfast. Finally, as we transition from our history of preservation to what we hope will become our future of protection and promotion, we are initiating a discussion of just what we should do and can do, not only with the conservation area itself, but also with the knowledge and expertise we have gained over these past years. We invite you to join us, to join in and help us with these important decisions. So these are the themes of this afternoon's meetings. Thank you for attending. And in advance, I want to thank all of those who will speak after me and all of the others who will participate, again, either in person or Zoom. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sid.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a welcome from our embattled landowners, Jeffrey and Judith.
I'm Jeffrey Mabey, landowner. Happy to be here, happy to see you all. It's hard to believe that the Friends of Harriet L. Hartley Conservation Area have sustained this effort to protect this conservation area for 6 years. I think I could safely say that we're all tired. But we did what we set out to do. Now the conservation area is permanently protected. People who visit there will be able to enjoy a natural habitat, not one fed by 1,800 pounds of nitrogen a day. Swimmers at Bayside and the Belfast City Park will be able to swim rather than 7 million gallons of effluent. they'll be able to swim in some clean water, as clean as we can get it around here. We're working on it. The seals, loons, cormorants, harbor porpoise, and a myriad of other intertidal life forms will thrive in non-toxic waters. This outcome is the result of many, many citizens coming together to protect what cannot protect itself. This is community service and action at its best. 5 years ago, I wrote the following words for our second annual meeting. The Harriet L. Hartley Conservation Area will remain a place of natural beauty for generations to come. I was optimistic. Creating this conservation area is not about stopping any one business, but about the future of the planet. If we cannot stop corporations, foreign or domestic, from controlling our natural environment and depleting our natural resources, then what does citizenship mean? So 6 years later, we can say with the conviction of experience, if citizens work in concert, we can have an effective voice about the well-being of our land and our planet. Judith and I owned the land that Nordic needed, but without the dedicated work of many, many people, that would have not have stopped Nordic. Stopping them required a brilliant lawyer who was willing to work tirelessly for very low pay, which we found in Kim Irvin Tucker. It required our Department of Justice lawyer, Catherine Hazard, who works with us without the promise of compensation. It required a group of super dedicated people to be on the Conservation Area Board in order to sustain a Herculean effort, meeting twice a month for 6 years. That is 144 meetings. And that number pales in comparison to the thousands of non-meeting hours our board members have given. I have never known board members who worked harder. And equally important are the hundreds of individual donations from members and friends in all the ways that you have supported us. The fight is not over, but we have won what we set out to win. This intertidal area and the land across the street will remain places of natural beauty for generations to come. We showed that regular people can stand up and win against corporate greed. And we created a group of people who care about one another and share a common love of the beauty and grandeur of what some might call just another mudflat. Our vision for the Harriet Hartley Conservation Area is one with restored eelgrass, an abundance of mussels. There are no mussels there now, they are gone. And a place to watch the many species of anadromous fish swimming up the river to spawn. Judith and I extend our heartfelt thanks to all who have made this vision a reality. Thank you.
And he's gonna talk a little bit about the board election process, which has rolled around soon.
I can be very quick. We do elect one or more board members or re-elect one or more board members every year. We have a 13-person maximum on our board. And right now we have two folks who are coming, their terms are coming to an end. They may decide they want to run for re-election, which is fine. And we have one open seat. So we have 3 possible seats if anyone here or in the vast internet audience is interested in how many meetings did we have so far, John? Yeah, if you're interested in being a board member, please see me. Once a month. Oh yes, we did make a radical change, and instead of meeting twice a month, we're now going to meet once a month. So that'll be a little bit of a break for a lot of folks. But I have a schedule for the election process. We have to get it all done by January. And if you're interested at all, or you know somebody who's interested, see me after the meeting during the supper and the fellowship time. And I'll be happy to take your email address and make sure that you are deluged with information about how to become a board member. And that is it. Okay. So for our pièce de résistance of the business portion of the meeting, we're going to hear from our attorney, Her Honor Kim Tucker, who will give us 20 minutes on the eminent domain case and my favorite, the slander of title case.
So at one time, we started with one case. And I naively thought, actually, when I gave them the deeds that showed that Jeffrey and Judith owned it, that they would go away. So, so you can see why I wasn't a real property lawyer and I was a constitutional lawyer, always the optimist. But 7 years later, 13 lawsuits later, 4 appeals to law court later. One of them was succeeded in, the other 3 got remanded back to the agencies and then just fizzled out.
It's just on your screen.
In the Bureau of Parks and Lands, they turned them down and revoked their, rescinded their leases for the submerged lands. And in the, BEP proceedings and DEP proceedings, they said maybe one in lost court. We don't care. And they just kept going with the permits. So we had to file more lawsuits. And Upstream Watch filed more lawsuits. We all brought lawsuits, to challenge that. But then eventually, Nordic just turned all their permits in. Either surrendered them or had them rescinded. And they didn't do that until January of this year. You might wonder, why didn't they do that right after the law court decision? I asked myself that every day. But I still never came up with an answer, so that's like. But eventually we got down to just 2 cases. It's kind of like one of those Agatha Christie things, and then there were 2. And so we have one case about slander title. And we just went to trial in that, and Ellie was and Judith were like superstars of testimony in that, by the way. And having had the continuity of Ellie being treasurer all that time, it really did help us, I thought, in the trial. And because we had somebody that could testify to all aspects of the expenses that had been incurred to, as they say, clear the clouds. That's what a slander title case is about. We have to show that 4 things. That they published disparaging statements, disparaging Jeffrey and Judith's title and friends' conservation easement. That was easy. They stipulated to it. That they, the comments they made were false. Multiple courts have said that. Both about the Eckroads owning the land, Jeffrey and Judith not owning the land, as well as the heirs of Harriet L. Hartley, who are made up people, who are 10 people from Pennsylvania, and other parts, that they pulled out of a hat or actually looked up on ancestry.com, who are actually not related to Harriet Hartley. They are Harriet Hartley's sister Genevieve's husband's great-grandchildren with his first wife who died in 1933. Oh. And because that's intestate section, right? Nowhere. But that's who they put on release deeds, and they're those release deeds to slander their title. And even after we won.
So it's just.
In 2023, they let them sit there in the Waldo County Registry of Deeds, oppose the judge, saying they should be marked as null and void in the order. And so we have had a fight all these years over that. That's one. The other case is about the condemnation order. Now, law court said, as I mentioned, that they remanded everything after they entered maybe 1 back to the agencies so they could fix their own mess. It's called the primary jurisdiction doctrine. In other words, you made this mess. So you don't have to waste it. I asked for the Waldo County Superior Court to do the same thing with the Belfast City Council on the condemnation under the same doctrine. And they did. The court sent it back and told them they had 3 options. They needed to reconsider the condemnation order based on errors of law and fact that were revealed by maybe 1. And for them to take that and either alter it, amend it, or vacate it. Court didn't want to vacate it. But you vacate.
but, or alter it or amend it. So we sent it back. 6 months later, the city council had still failed or refused to put it on their agenda. So I had to file another lawsuit to force them to put it on their agenda so they would comply with a court order. That's how arrogant and out of control Belfast City Council. They are lawless, and I know we are living in a time where we are numb to that, when every aspect of our government appears to feel that they are immune from our laws. So we have to hold people that do that to account. As citizens, that is our greatest responsibility. I have spent most of my career as a constitutional lawyer. I have played a real property lawyer on TV for the last 6 years, and I am not a real property lawyer. But for me, there is nothing that is a greater responsibility than we have right now. And so I know that Jeffrey and Judith have been criticized from people that they're suing the city for damages and attorney's fees for the condemnation. But I will tell you, I believe that is the most important thing we can do, is to make them have a court order imposed against them for that wrong. Because how else do we hold government to account that if we publicly shame them by their shameful acts? So my time here, I want to pitch that and make people understand, this is not just about money. This is about holding people to account for cruelty and unconstitutional behavior. You don't take private people's land and give it to a multinational corporation and then say, but we're going to call it a park. But you're giving them a piece of paper, an easement, allowing them to put an industrial pump house on that land. What are we going to call it? Pump House Park? We're all going to throw the frisbees around the pump house? No, this was a sham. This was an illegal act, and they need to be held to account. So that case is still going on. And I have talked to the board about doing a bit of a radical thing with that. We've got the case against Nordic. There's only one asset Nordic has left. When we took the testimony the other day, Brenda Chandler, first, hasn't worked for Nordic since June. She was there as the corporate representative. How? Well, she's getting paid by some corporation in Norway. And they filter it through some bank account that used to be in the name of Nordic Aqua Farms Inc. How many employees does Nordic Aqua Farm Inc. have? 0. How many of the people that have worked for Nordic Aqua Farms in the past have worked for them in the last year? 1, Brenda, and she hasn't done it since June. How many people vote in cabinet are part of their employees in California? 1's left. Who's their project manager, who apparently plays Wordle all day now because there isn't a project. They're selling a term. They didn't have people fighting them out there. So all this, oh, it's NIMBY is fighting us. No, they just pulled up stake. Brenda says that they're under a corporation called BM, standing for Belfast, Maine, Aquaculture AS. I look at their lawyer, who's got this look of shock and weird, like a deer in a headlight. He tells me afterwards, I never heard of that organization, Kim. So they have shoveled the deck chairs on the Titanic and tried to insulate the mothership in Norway from any damages. So the only asset that they said that they have bank accounts. How much is in the bank accounts, Brenda? None. There's no money in the bank accounts. They've stripped it. What is your only asset? Is it the only asset you have, the 54 acres in Belfast? Yes. So that is why it is so important for us, so that they get paid their damages and all the costs incurred in clearing the clouds that still exist, by the way, in all the county register deeds, that we have access to that money. Now, I have asked our brethren at Upstream Watch if they will agree not to give that money early to them and wait at least till their November 15th deadline for the closing. They will not agree to that. I am having to file a motion to attach in hopes the court will attach it for the land. Because they will not cooperate in making sure that they can get paid. Because as soon as that company gets their hands on that money, it will be offshored so fast before a blink of a phone.
Let's make sure everybody knows Kim's talking about a motion against Nordic, not upstream or water keepers.
Sure, that's absolutely true. And certainly wouldn't be against water, but it would just be against, it would just be asking the court to attach the money. So it would allow the transaction to go through. It just would keep Nordic from running offshore. That's what the goal is. Because we don't want to not have the transaction go through. We just want to make sure the money's available there, that Nordic in Norway can't run off, because there is no Nordic in the US. They've already cut their operations. So I'm also going to get Nordic because on the civil rights case, they were very clever in how they drafted all the contracts with the city. It says that the city can use eminent domain in their sole discretion. And so the city did in their sole discretion. There was no document that shows that Nordic had a gun to their head to make them do it, because they didn't. They very willingly did that to harm 40-year residents of the city of Belfast in favor of these carpetbaggers that came in here selling snake oil and then like. So, I have a call on Monday with, the city attorney and one of the lawyers in the firm to talk about what's gonna happen with the condemnation case, the eminent domain case. Because what I'm looking to do is narrow that so that we get Nordic out of that one. So we got Nordic in the one, and then the city in the other. But I am not letting the city out. Because I think of all the things we can do, holding the city of Belfast to account for what they did to them is the most important thing we can do, more than anything else. So,
Thank you, Kim.
does anybody have any questions? Excellent. Thanks for me. Thank you.
I'm really happy to know that that environmental advocacy is alive and well in this community. You've already heard that, Penobscot Bay Waterkeepers, formerly known as Upstream Watch, has a purchase and sale agreement with Nordic. They're raising funds. We understand that they're very close to their goal, and we definitely support their efforts to make sure that that land is not that it's not vulnerable to more industrial scale development. Today, we're happy to have representatives from 3 organizations who have been working for a long time in our community and in the state to protect our environment. They share our goal of seeing the Little River watershed protected and conserved for generations to come, and we're really looking forward to collaborating with them and the days ahead. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Greg Biddinger, who is the president of the Belfast Bay Watershed Coalition. Hi, Greg.
Can you see, I think they can see me right there on the screen. And are we gonna put the slides up?
Yes, we can.
While Andy's doing that, I'll just say a couple things. Or maybe I'll ask a couple questions. How many people in here are also members of Belfast Bay Watershed Coalition? Raise your hand. Quite a few. How many people in here have done Penn Bay Stewards in the room? So I think there's a lot of overlap between our organizations in both people and intent and so on. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about what we might do with the Little River watershed, the Nordic land and the Little River community share. So lots of things that trying to go forward. Our mission, the Belfast Bay Watershed Coalition's mission, I want to just share around for hands. Support conservation and stewardship of all natural and public lands in the watershed, And the way we do that, the sort of the technical way we do that is through research, community building projects, and through education. And it actually, that's the way it's sort of, that order is the way it reads in our mission. But I would say we are much stronger with education than probably anything else. And although I'm proud of all the work we do with community building and our research work and all. I had a couple slides up front that sort of talk about what we do and how we do it. And I did it because I wanted to get the content to why the little matters to us. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk and Andy will come in. So it's the first thing, we're an organization like you all, they're driven by volunteers here. We have 220 members. And we have 147 volunteers to work on projects in 2024. We haven't got the 2024 date, yes. So that's 67% of our paid members actively volunteer. That's pretty good. That's pretty strong. The next approach we do is collaboration. We collaborate with anybody who's willing to collaborate with us. And we have collaborations that I'll mention later with Harriet Hartley group and with a number of others. And we're jointly involved in the Waldo County Climate Action Coalition as well. Oh, thanks, Steve. You're just gonna stand there or kneel there and toggle them, or do I have something to toggle with?
I'm going to kneel and toggle.
Sure.
Okay.
Say, my knees are in for just fine. Okay, go to slide 5. Very. So basically, we do a lot of collaboration with everything from, you'll see schools, municipalities, indigenous groups, businesses, church groups, and other nonprofit organizations. I mean, we see collaboration as a major way of sort of getting more power to the table in any of these kind of things. I just want to touch on some of our major programs. We have over 20 programs that we're actively doing every year, various approaches that we use, but education is one of our strongest. And so the Penobscot Bay Stewards Program is an annual program we do for 20 plus adults to spend about 6 weeks studying the region and all the social, economic, and ecological aspects of the region, how that all sort of plays together. Next slide. We have a really strong environmental education program. Sorry if I get my back to you. Really strong environmental education program where we work with the elementary schools. We have a program, we call it natural literacy, the general category, but we have a making friends with nature folks that are focused on working in 6 elementary schools in our region, in RSU 21 and 70, I guess. And then we have a Fish Friends program where we bring salmon into the school, salmon eggs in the school, and the kids raise them up to fry level. And then they all go out to Chloe Chun's farm in Swanville and release them into the Goose River. And we work with 11 schools region on that one. We have the Merlin Club is with Troy Howard. We work with the 6th and 7th graders, and we have a program with them. And then we have a special program we just resurrected this last couple of years after COVID, where we send junior high school students out to Hurricane Island for a week to study and to sort of get dipped in the environment. Next one, Andy. This is just some statistics you all can't see, but you'll get the slides and you can see later. But we spend a lot of time. We have 2 paid employees. One is Jenny Judkins. She's a half-time natural literacy educator, award-winning natural literacy educator, and she runs most of these programs with the kids. And we spend about over 5,000 contact hours with the kids on an annual basis. That's a lot. I think that's a serious economic contribution to the community. Next one. We also do research. John Kruger's just come on board to help us do some more of this, but we have an ongoing water quality research program that does sort of a standard suite of water quality metrics that you would collect in the Belfast Bay area. And we run that from Bayside up to Sears Island now. And we're looking at, the standard things you would look at: dissolved oxygen, pH, salinity, conductivity, temperature, and turbidity, so the visibility through the water. We were thinking about nitrogen because of the Nordic aquifer. We were gonna get a probe for that, and we may still. We're thinking now about maybe getting what they call Sunny, which is a standing monitoring device that floats out in the bay all the time and would collect data continuously. Not cheap, but about $12,000, but we're thinking about it. Next one. And then we have some new programs that we started. This is where John helps out. We basically are looking at microplastics. Sorry, John. Looking at microplastics coming out of the wastewater treatment plant right at the moment and finding some, but not as many as we thought. But microplastics are everywhere, and we're just starting to get involved in that. We've been working on looking at what's the second one I'm thinking about? This is what happens when you get old. Healthy beaches. We're collaborating with the city, and we've got the city focused on us helping them create a bacterial monitoring on swimming beaches in the area called the Healthy Beaches Program, and bringing the city into the Healthy Beaches state level program. So, next slide. So we're continually sort of evolving with that. And then the other thing that I think ties to the Nordic property and the trails and stuff, we do a lot of outdoor activities with birds and hiking and guided tours and canoe trips and things like that. So, next one. So, and then I guess the one that ties the closest is the Little River Community Trail. You may not know that Belfast Bay Watershed, working with Coastal Mountain Land Trust. Oh, is Jack coming in person?
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Jack. Sorry. He's back there. Anyway, we work with Coastal Mountain Land Trust on this. We've worked with them. This trail was started in 2007 or 2005. They started on it. And in 2007, it was actually commissioned. So it's been around at October 26th. So it's been around almost 18 years tomorrow. And this is our trail team that keeps track of that. And now I'm going to sort of switch into the real question that you all asked me to come talk about. So our strongest tie to the property, and not directly to the property that Nordic owned, but down the road and was impacted by the whole process, is this 5-mile trail, the Little River Trail, that starts at that water district property and runs all the way around 4 miles over to Route 52, Belmont.
Lincoln.
And then it goes all the way over to, and then the next mile, the last mile starts at the Troy Howard School and runs to the back of the Hutchinson Center and over on Route 3. It's been around a while. Like I said, it was a collaboration. And the one thing that's always bothered me since I've been president is that we do not have, except in one location, we have no permanent conservation on that trail at all. That trail is all a handshake, except for one piece, a little piece that's just before you get to where Perkins Road and Herrick Road come together. That's owned by Jeff Limlin, and Jeff has an easement on that land, and so we have one easement on a trail. Bless you. I have some in here, but I didn't know what we're doing. Anyway, yeah, so, okay, I'm not gonna deal with that. It's okay. It's a little too hard to see anyhow from here. But anyhow, we basically are trying to get that conservation. We've been working with Coastal Mountain Land Trust for the last 3 years now, it seems like 3-4 years. But anyhow, we have a great relationship with those folks and real strong partnership. Next one. So here's my vision. This is not a BBWC vision per se. We've talked about this, but we don't have a board vote on this. We don't have anything in writing per se, that kind of thing. So take this with a grain of salt. But at a minimum, it seems to me, we're going to acquire and permanently conserve the Nordic properties. I think that I call it the pump house, some people call it a red house, whatever you want to call it, right by the dam. I think that should be a focus for an environmental education center. I think we ought to turn that into a place where kids can come to classrooms, the kids can go there and they can use that area as a place to sort of stage and have classroom and hands-on stuff, pick out pellets, do all sorts of different things in there. So I really like to see that that, a vision of that, put in place. The property itself, the Nordic property, I don't know enough about it ecologically. I keep hearing it's wet, but I'd like to know a lot more about it ecologically before I make any recommendations. But for me, it can either be more actively recreational and educational, or it could just be passive habitat for the folks who really need it, the animals. The next two bullets just basically say, my next minimum is I want a conservation or a trail easement on the area of land that runs along here, that's owned by the city now. And we've been talking with them, and they've been open to putting a trail easement on that. And then all the way across, I'd like to see that easement as part of our, making it permanently conserved, move over into the water district land above the second dam. And try and put an easement on the Belfast Bay, the Belfast Watershed District area. Although that may go to the city, right, Jack? That area above the second dam, that's on, we don't know yet. Okay. Anyway, and then the other thing as a minimum, I think we need to do the technical assessments of the dams with, for strategy for removal and restoration of the river. I mean, there was an evaluation done for Ransom. For those of you who don't know, Ransom Environmental, it's not, I didn't mean that somebody was ransoming. There was a study that was done in 2018, so there's actually quite a bit of information about how dangerous those dams are. But and there's gonna be a lot of community dialogue that's gonna be needed around any kind of removal of those dams and so on. All right, but anyway, I think, so at a minimum, we need to do those things. Next. And if the money were available, and if things fall into place, and if the debt, oh, not yet.
Nope,
Oh, I'm sorry,
sorry. Oh, yay.
up to. One more,
Yeah, well,
there it is, yeah, so if the dam's available, then obviously, right at the moment, not, without understanding further studies and understanding what the consequences are, without modeling it. I think we need to have, we need a restoration design that allows the Little River to return to sea run fish. We also need to, and if we're gonna be replacing the reservoirs with a river, what that does is that provides us a tremendous amount of opportunity, because all of that shoreline that comes back, as it recedes back into a river, all of those places could be wetlands. So we could really increase the wetlands potential of that. We could, when you go in to redo a river like that, it's not just blow the dam up and let it flow. I mean, you really have to get in there and think about the course and structurally sort of manage the flow of the river, or it'll take off on its own. You might be surprised by where it goes. That gives us opportunities to create vernal pools, different habitat areas, so we can really uplift the biodiversity compared to what's there now. It's just basically a pond, and really create more vibrant and diverse habitat on that. And to me, then that turns it into a greater educational opportunity. So if I'm involved and we're talking about putting a design together for the restoration, it's going to be designed against how it's going to be used, not just its ecological considerations, but that plus how do we want to structure this with accessibility and those kinds of things, so that you can create a vernal pool station for kids, a wetlands habitat station for kids, ephemeral stream station for kids. You can do all this kind of thing. You could create a curriculum around the Little River, right? You could literally write curriculum around that. And then from our point of view, as that water goes back, well, our trails are sort of tracking the reservoir. Well, if that goes down, our trails are going to be up compared to the water body. That then provides an opportunity for us maybe to do off trails, little loops, side loops, things like that. So you can get creative on those kind of things. Next. Okay, so we're committed. I just want to make sure we're committed to participating in all of this restoration, whether it's raising funds, the initial studies, we get involved. It's amazing how much, since I've been here, I have a PhD in ecology. I was a toxicologist, and then midway through my career, I switched to land conservation and so on. But I am always shocked by the number of people in this town that have a PhD in something, the wildlife biologists and chemists, all sorts of, we just have a lot of horsepower in this town. maybe retired horsepower. They don't run a quarter mile like we used to. But we have a lot of really smart and people with time on their hands. So I think we can get involved in the studies, the research design, community outreach. I think that's really key. I mean, it's the fourth bullet there, but it's probably the first one. And then habitat building and stuff like that. And we're willing to provide volunteers, turn our membership onto this, the expertise. And to the degree we have some little extra money or cash over, we can provide some limited funds or not. Don't have a lot of money. I think that's it. The next slide is just my contact information. And you guys will get these slides, but questions?
Yeah, thank you so much for this. It's really, I need to join this organization. I'm not a member. I live in Winterport. And I wonder if you'd like to add RSU 22. It's around the Penobscot River. RSU, yeah, our schools to your program. So
I'm not the person, person to talk to about that, but I'd be happy to test that message back and see how it would flow.
yeah, I'm on the Winterport Conservation Commission. We were looking at two-piece properties. We have no river access and we're called an old river town, but there's no public river access. So I'd love to talk to you about that.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, a question and a comment. The question is, do you know anything about the clear cut that has taken place in the first mile and a half going south from Lincolnville Avenue? And can anything be done right up? It goes right up to essentially right up to the trail. And whether anything can be done to prevent that from happening elsewhere in the future?
This is not the Little River housing development.
No, it's the Little River Trail. It seems to have been cut for pulp. And it, in the first mile and a half from Lincolnville Avenue going south.
I do not know anything.
It's a couple years old by now. I think it was at least last year. Yeah.
It is, I think you're talking about the development.
The development? Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah. Waldo County, yeah, say this is the handshake routine. Waldo County owned that land.
Uh-huh.
And we had an agreement with Waldo County, although not in writing. We had an agreement with Waldo County that the Little River Trail would sort of wind around the edge of that property. So so they sold it. And the first time we heard about it is when they sold it. And so what we did was, we decided to take a different route with the city. We went to Bub. And we also had people who were on a former board member who was on the planning board. And we asked to have a meeting with the owner. And so we went and once again, being trusting, we had a conversation with him and said, look, the trail is here. That trail is actually an economic amenity for you and your folks. And you can ask for higher prices on your houses because they have backup to nature with this nature trail on it. But you have to protect it. So we asked them for a 15-foot vegetative buffer from the back and so on. Yeah, they've been cooperative and so on. But for the most part, they have a lot of wetlands down towards the bottom that they can't really build on very easily. And they were trying to give the wetlands to other folks, the city and Coastal Mountain Land Trust and anybody they could give it away to. But if that's the one you're talking about, yeah, that was about 2 years ago. We were involved in it and that's how we handled it. I mean, we've got a couple more, I'm gonna digress, but we've got, right now, you've got, they're trying to put a 200 unit housing development right adjacent to the Captain Albert Stevenson School, Cass School.
Yeah.
That, we're trying to get involved with that once again. We're gonna try and meet with Bub and so on and have a conversation about this. But in essence, that, the downside is the school unit, basically gave a right of way to the owner of the land because the land was landlocked. And it goes right through, that's all wet. And he basically went in and he clear cut forest. And now it's all cattails and other stuff. But there also was some bulldozing and berming, and we have a vernal pool out there that's very special. That's where we take the kids out to do stuff. And I had some of those pictures you saw with the little girl with the beaming face and her hands in a bucket, that came out of that vernal pool. So everybody who has a kid or a grandkid that goes through Captain Albert Stevenson's in the last 10, 15 years has been using that land for hiking and nature walks and for hands-on and stuff. So we're gonna try and get on that. And also maybe have a conversation about the wetlands behind Rennie's. That needs to be addressed as well. So there's, yeah, the city really needs to get the idea that development's valuable, but in the right place. Yeah. And anybody who went to the planning board meeting last week, it was, I watched it on TV.
Also,
What a shit show, sorry.
also had an idea or suggestion, and that is you mentioned various things that could be taught in connection to kids in connection with the trail.
Yeah.
And it seems to me another thing.
Not
that-
just the trail, expand your vision, make it bigger.
Right.
Okay.
But another thing that occurs to me that could be taught and, age appropriate, et cetera, perhaps the high school kids, is the power of community organizing to save an area. That this is, as has been said several times, this is a great
Sure.
prime example of that. And I think that that would be an appropriate lesson for kids, when they reach such an age as to absorb it.
Right, and I didn't mention, I agree, and I didn't mention the fact that, in the background, we've been talking with, interacting with other groups you'll hear from today, but also the Penobscot Nation, Penobscot Indian Nation. And I would see that, as we go through, and if we put signage in and educational material and stuff like that, we would build that into any kind of a focus for the region, on that kind of stuff. Okay. That's it for me, unless you have something else for me. No.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jack Shaida. There he is. He's the Stewardship and Land Protection Manager for Coastal.
Get ahead of Jack here.
Yeah.
While he's getting set up, for anybody in the room who hasn't done the Penobscot Bay program, Andy and I did it very soon after. Best thing ever to get to know about the geology of the state. Quickly news, what's getting done, wonderful field trips, it's incredible.
One of the things we're thinking about doing with that is, take individual days. Basically, it's like. And take those and start to develop them into one-day programs for, families. For people, so they can go on Saturday. They can get it, people educational, recreational effects. So we're just starting to explore.
It's a real gift to the community.
It is. You can also search this. Just the same.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Sometimes I like to play against my type as a younger person and go analog, so I just brought some maps. I really like maps. Sometimes pictures are nice too, but I think I'll do the same thing as Greg, who is a member of Coastal Mountains Land Trust. So I know a lot of you, Jan was our longtime board chair. She's still on our board. And I think the rest of you know us a bit, but I will go briefly through as if you didn't know us at all. And as Jane already said, I stewardship, which means I take care of our land and our trails, and land protection, which means I work on new projects like projects in the Lower River. And I've been at Coastal Mountains for about 7 years. So we are like all the organizations here, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We are a community land trust that has a mission to conserve land and connect people to nature. I think there's some other words, I don't remember them. Jan, you can correct me on those. And our primary way we do that is through conserving individual properties. So we work in 16 towns in Knox and Waldo counties. We formed in 1986 to protect Beach Hill Preserve in Rockport. Who's been to Beach Hill?
Before it was preserved.
Before it was preserved. So now it's preserved. For those who haven't, Beach Hill is a wonderful 300-acre hill down in Rockport, kind of in the southern end of our service region. It's about 500 feet tall. It has about 360-degree views, including a Penobscot Bay, Camden Hill State Park, nearby mountains, and there's a stone hut on the top of it. It's been our most popular preserve for a long time. It's really built our identity and who we are, that we are more than just kind of nature for nature's sake, although that's a big part of what we do, but we are big into community needs and getting our communities outside. So we do lots of things up on Beach Hill. I've already kind of mentioned what our programs are. The first and the basis of it is land conservation. We are always working on new projects. In our history, we have done over 210 individual projects. You know, we've averaged, so we've been around for 39 years. So you can do the math. So we average about five to six a year, some years more, some years less. And they can be throughout our service region. The properties and projects can look very different. Some can be like the Little River and be kind of complex and have many different characteristics. Some can be strictly a trail corridor. Some could be strictly wetland conservation with no trails or other public access. In addition, we take care of all of our property. So every property we own about 40, we call them preserves. We take care of their boundaries, we make management plans, we look at their ecological needs. Many, but not all of them, also have trails, and we invest a tremendous amount in the trails on our properties because we want them to be safe and fun and easy to access for anyone who wants to go there. And it's a big value of our organization, of our board and staff, to make sure that when someone shows up to a Coastal Mountains Land Trust property, they're gonna have a safe and good time, and that's gonna leave them with better feelings about conservation and about nature in their local area. And then the third thing we do, which has a lot of overlap with BBWC, but we both have kind of distinct spheres, is community engagement, is working with people to bring them outside. We have a bunch of public events. Some of you may have attended some of them. Our most notable ones, we do a concert series at Beach Hill. And we do a blueberry free pick down there. So we do library walks, we do hikes, we do things like that. And then we have an outdoor education program called Learning Landscapes that is different from BBWC and what they're doing. We do a lot less direct programming with the kids, in part because BBWC was already doing such a good job. So we focus on training teachers to go out and do outdoor education on their own, and we can provide them volunteers, resources to help them do that. And in the case of 3 properties, we also provide them land and outdoor classrooms adjacent to their schools. To do that, Greg mentioned the property next to Captain Albert Sievert's, Captain Albert Stevens, that we've been part of those conversations. Sometimes projects do not work out the way you want, but we keep trying. So we formed originally Canada Rockport, what we've been working in Belfast for over 20 years. Our first property was the Stevenson Preserve, which is a little property off City Point Road. It's almost directly across from the upper bridge parking lot of the rail trail. We considered that in 2002. And we've been kind of working nonstop in Belfast and then Greater Waller County ever since. The biggest project we've done in Belfast was being a major partner and funder of the rail trail. That is owned and not owned, but the rights are held by the city and it's managed by the city. But Coastal Mountains put a lot into it, and we continue to play a small role in helping them steward that trail, which I think, as you all know, it's remarkable how many people are out there. I was lucky enough to be there with some volunteers a couple of weeks ago, pruning the vegetation on the trail, because there's really no one at the city who kind of has that in their job title. So we kind of snuck in there and then we have some offers. And just on a Wednesday morning, I stopped counting how many people there were and how excited everyone was to be outside. So it's really tremendous, and it makes us at Coastal Mountains very proud to see folks out there. More recently, I do have another map, but it's getting crowded up here. We launched in 2022 something called the Waldo County Conservation Initiative, which was a fundraising effort to get dollars for new land conservation programs in Waldo County. Over 3 years, we were able to raise about $250,000 from the community and match that with about $500,000 from foundation grants, and complete about 19 projects. And I think it was about 1,300 acres. And the projects were very diverse in terms of their goals, aims, and types, the things I've already mentioned. Some were wetland conservation, some were lake conservation, some were water access. We did a bunch of schools projects, and we did a bunch of trails projects. We continue to look at opportunities in Waldo County and Greater Belfast to work on. And that kind of brings us to, the Little River. So this is the Little River watershed. Sorry, the map is small, but it's bigger than what would be on the screen. So I'm glad I brought it. Greg did a good job describing a lot of the parcels and the area around the Little River Community Trail. That is Coastal Mountain's #1 goal on the Little River. It's part of our new strategic plan to permanently conserve the Little River Trail. And that doesn't mean just the trail. There's land, there is environmental benefit going along with that conservation. But we see how important the trail is to the community, and that's really the strength of our skill set to go and work on the trail to make it permanent. Our strength and our skill set is not advocacy, it's not lawsuits, and in a lot of cases, it's not even being reactive to certain challenges. We tend to be a very proactive organization. We work on a very long time horizon, and we try to protect places before someone proposes development. So once the development's proposed, it makes it hard, not impossible, but hard for us to act. So that's our key goal, is protecting the trail. Greg was kind of talking through some of the different issues along it. Right now, none of it is permanently conserved to kind of Coastal Mountain standard. With a trail or an easement we control, aside from that area Greg mentioned, small area of Perkins Road. I see a path forward in the next 5 years to having conserved at least all the trail from Route 1 to Route 52, if not the trail farther. I think beyond that, we have a vision, we don't necessarily the direct path, to expand the trail even further, and want to point people, do people know the Little River Commons on Edgecombe Road? The new organization that formed there, they have a wonderful trail network upstream of Route 52. And it's only 2 properties between their trails and where the Little River Trail kind of turns away from the river and goes to Walsh Stream. So it'd be a really remarkable thing to actually have the Little River Trail continue up the Little River into a headwaters area, which has a really wonderful upland forest. And keep going, because most of the watershed is beyond Route 52. Beyond focus on the trail and focus on land conservation is just reiterating what Greg and Jill's going to talk about, is working in partnership, and working in partnership on the things that we don't necessarily do as much, we don't have this big strength. So the 2 things here are river restoration, and that includes, but is not limited to, working with and dealing with the dams, which I think are owned by the Belfast Water District. Belfast Water District does not want to own those dams. They're kind of in a tough position with their budget, with their funding needs, in terms of repairing pipes and keeping the water flowing into the city. And as Greg said, the dams are not in good shape. They're large liabilities, which kind of means it's a no-go situation. Nobody really wants to own them. And it's a very challenging circumstance, but there's a lot of good opportunity that Greg talked about, including some potential feasibility work that's being led by the Penobscot Indian Nation, or maybe led by the Penobscot Indian Nation. So we're there to be a partner with that. We have never done a big river restoration project. The closest analogy was the conservation of the Duck Track River. We conserved over 90% of that river, but that was mostly conservation. That was land that was largely undeveloped. There were no dams on the main stream. There were not any major environmental issues to clean up. There were some minor restoration projects we did in addition to the conservation. So the Little River is going to be new, exciting, and different, and we'll only be able to do great things if we're working with all the other organizations and kind of listening to the community, because people care so deeply about it. The other thing we will work together with you all is on education and meeting people at the land to help them learn, to help us learn, about what are the best steps forward. For the Nordic property, and beyond, I am not trained in any way as an ecologist, so I really cannot tell you about its natural wonders, but I can tell you there are a lot of invasive plants there. I spend a lot of time killing them. And eventually, if you have a hammer, everything's a nail. So every invasive plant to me is something that I want to remove. And it's a serious problem that, especially as we talk about bigger restoration projects, including potentially dealing with the dams, really needs to be kind of taken under control. So there's a lot of good there. There's some bad there. I think we can deal with it and we can make a much healthier lower Little River. That's kind of all I have. So do we want to do questions? But I also want to be cognizant of time to throw it to Jill.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to bring Jill on. I don't know about anybody else.
Well, Howell is the project manager for Downeast Salmon Federation. Hi, Joe. Hi, everybody.
All right, Jill, just tell me which one you want.
Sure.
There you go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Should I just tell you when to
Yes,
hit?
I will toggle. I'll do that list.
Great. Thanks for having me. My name's Jill Howell and I can't get away from salmon, whether it's trying to stop, raising them on land and now, trying to restore them in the rivers. So go next. I'm gonna talk a little bit about Downeast Salmon Federation and what we do and how we go about doing it, and then also give our take on the Little River. Have folks heard of Downeast Salmon Federation, members of Downeast Salmon? Okay, great. So our mission is to conserve and restore not just salmon, but all wild sea-run fish species and their habitat in Downeast, Maine. We were formed in 1982 by anglers down in Downeast, Maine, who were concerned about the future of salmon in the region. Can go to the next slide. And so when we're talking about the sea-run fish, there are 12 species that we're looking at here in Maine. So it's salmon are important, but we are also, when we're thinking about restoring habitat or restoring connectivity amongst rivers, we're not just aiming to restore the salmon. There are a number of different species that benefit from this work. Our model of how we go about doing this, obviously we're focused on the fish themselves, but there are a number of ways that we go about doing that work and benefits beyond just the fish. So in order to get the fish back into the waters, into the rivers, we're doing a lot of restoring habitat as well. This includes things like dam removal, but also addition of fishways. It includes land conservation. We're also actually a land trust. We advocate for a number of different things at all levels, from local up to federal policy. And we recognize that like salmon have significant cultural importance to rural communities in Maine, but also Wabanaki people, and an economic benefit as well. You can go to the next slide. So and I think my second photo got deleted there, but these are I just picked a handful of things that Downeast Salmon Federation has worked on to kind of highlight how broad the work is. That picture in the left corner, that fishway, the dam is still there. Obviously, no dams are ideal for fish, but the reality of what is on the ground and what communities want and need, it doesn't always mean a dam comes out. So there was a reconstruction of a fishway there. There should have also been a picture of a culvert replacement. So culverts oftentimes are barriers themselves to migratory fish, but if they are wide and deep enough, they do allow for fish passage. And then the photo on the right is just to demonstrate how much sort of the conservation piece of DSF. There's about 6,500 acres that DSF has conserved, all in Downeast, Maine. And I think about 16 miles of riverfront property. Go to the next slide. Oh, there's my photo. That's the culvert that does allow fish to get up there.
Next one.
Next one, yep. So we also have two hatcheries. There's a hatchery on the Pleasant River and a hatchery in East Machias. In order to stock some of the rivers, we raise salmon at both of these facilities to go into the East Machias River, the Narraguagus River, and the Pleasant River. We also have an office without a hatchery in Whiting. There are 8 rivers in Maine that have the remaining salmon runs. 5 are in Downeast, and then 3 in the mid-coast. And salmon used to run all the way down to Connecticut, but these are the last remaining runs of Atlantic salmon in the US. You can go to the next slide. Oh, keep going. There's some weird animation stuff happening here. You can click a couple times as well. You can hold it there for a second. We also do, much like Coastal Mountains and BBWC, a lot of outreach, engagement, and community education. This includes lots of programs with kids to sort of show them how the work we do is benefiting the rivers that they are living around. And the picture up at the right is one of the hatcheries. And then the picture on the left are folks out monitoring for fish in the rivers. So, as the name suggests, Downeast Salmon Federation has primarily worked in Downeast, Maine for their entire history. But recently, there has been a look sort of beyond just Downeast, Maine, to start looking at restoring sea run fish beyond the area where the organization is concentrated. I live in Belfast and was recently brought on in August, specifically for a project in Orland. So the Orland River, you can see with the blue arrow, there are a few dams on the Orland River and the Narramissic that it sort of turns into. The Orland Village Dam is the most downstream dam. It's about 100 years old. Timber Crib Dam. It is, in need of being addressed. About a decade ago, the town went through the process of deciding whether they wanted to keep the dam or take it out. They decided to keep it for a number of reasons. And they recently received funding from the Penobscot, from Greenfield to the Penobscot River, Mercury. Thank you, Jack. So the Orland River runs adjacent to the Penobscot River. And because it is tidal, the mercury contamination from Poltrachem has come down the Penobscot River and traveled back up the Orland River, brought with the tides. Yes, exactly. The dam actually blocks most of the mercury contamination from going further upstream. It's not a perfect barrier because that dam overtops on really high tides and from like pretty big storms. So there is mercury behind it, but at levels significantly lower than downstream. And that was one of the reasons, not the only one, but one of the reasons why the town voted to keep the dam in place, to kind of keep that mercury downstream. So we started in August working with the Town of Orland Fish and Dam Committee. We will be hiring an engineering firm to do a feasibility study and engineering evaluation to come up with 1 or 2 options of how to rebuild or adjust this dam so that it can last another 100 years. It can keep the mercury downstream. And then there is a fishway currently here, and that's the picture in the middle. But on either side of low tide, a couple hours, the fishway sits in the mud, so no fish can actually get up or down. They'll be stranded. So part of this project is adding much better fishway for the Orland River. You can go to the next slide. The other place where DSF has been spending some time is down in Camden on the Megunticook River watershed. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but in June, the town voted to approve the removal of the Montgomery Dam, which is the one that sits right down in Camden Harbor, which is really exciting. There are a number of dams behind the Montgomery Dam before it gets to McGuntacook Lake. And the dam owners behind the Montgomery have also been engaged and are interested or on board with removal or addition of fish passage. And so the town of Camden has done a really great job. They've gotten some grant funding to do feasibility studies and kind of like look at the whole watershed. And we have been brought in with the knowledge and experience of like how to actually remove or add fish passage and oversee these projects. We can go to the next slide. This is a screenshot grabbed from the stream and habitat viewer, I believe. The red dots are obstructions, dams, and this is not entirely the Belfast Bay Watershed, but close to it. So as you can see, there's a number of like opportunities and dams to be addressed in this very local region. We seem to really, really love dams. And this sort of brings us to the Little River. As many of you, everybody probably knows, there are 2 dams on the river. There are also a couple culverts upstream of the upper dam. The photos on the bottom right are historical photos from the Belfast Water District, the current owners of the dam. And that is the old Route 1 bridge in the middle, and then that is the Route 1 bridge washed out after the lower dam failed in the 1940s, I believe, and completely took out that bridge, which is worst case scenario, and I think like what we'd all like to avoid again. The dams are in rough shape, especially that upper dam, and kind of need to be like taken a serious look at. I think both of them are over 100 years old at this point, and the Belfast Water District doesn't have the funding to properly maintain these and bring them back up to a point of safety. So what is my next slide?
2 dams were built.
Oh, you can go to
Keep
you can keep it there.
Okay.
As far as DSF's role in all of this, what we bring is experience in overseeing dam removal and or like addition of proper fish passage to the table, and kind of like things that surround this in order to get to the point of a community deciding what happens to these dams. DSF has a lot of experience in bringing stakeholders together in public education and outreach to kind of get a sense of where people are at on dam projects. The upper dam, the one in most disrepair, in some ways feels a bit easier to think about removing. The lower one brings up conflicts that often come along with dam removal projects. And that is people having strong attachment to a dam and sort of hesitant about change. And, you know, that is right as you drive into Belfast. So a potential role that we could help to play is educating the public about what it would look like afterwards, why it is so important to not only the fish, but the ecology of the river itself and the broader ecosystem. We also do a lot of scientific monitoring. So there's some information about the fish present in the river and what may come back if the dams were removed or fish passage was added. But we do a lot of pre-construction, pre-project monitoring, and then also monitoring after the fact to see what has returned and sort of how quickly and what numbers. And we also have experience in taking ownership of dams during the life of the project. So we would own a dam until it is removed, or own a dam during the time that like a fishery is added. And we know that the Belfast Water District is sort of looking to offload these. They are a huge liability. And we are somebody who would take, I think Jack said nobody wants these, we would take them. We know that there is a lot happening around this property, and in some ways that is good, right? Like, people in Belfast have some knowledge and understanding of the value of the land around the Little River, knowledge of the dams, and maybe they need to be addressed. But also it cuts both ways. I think there's been a lot of contention and community division around all of this for a while. The other sort of like pro for the Little River versus maybe other places is waterfront property owners around reservoirs are often a huge sort of stakeholder and impediment to taking dams out. Because these reservoirs were made for the purposes of drinking water sources, there are protections for the land that are around drinking water supplies. So there is not the same level of waterfront development and property owners around these reservoirs as a lot of other ones. So if we're looking for the positives, that is one of them. Again, we also value and understand the importance of partnerships. We rarely do a project alone. So are prepared and interested to engage with all of the groups locally here who have a stake in this and who are interested in the future of the property. The last thing that I'll say is there's been some discussion about the building itself on the Little River. As an education center, I've heard potentially office space for certain community organizations. We are interested kind of in having a permanent presence in Mid-Coast Maine as we move into Orland and into Camden, and hopefully into Belfast. And we have no idea what the, I don't know, first level of the building looks like at the Little River, but Dwayne, who is the executive director, talks about vision of having a hatchery down here. We believe that it's sort of necessary to reserve what we have right now and keep genetics of the salmon strong to have hatcheries while we support or while we try to restore sea run fish. So that is basically the presentation. I'm happy to answer questions. If you go to our website, if you're not on our email list, you can see what we get up to. You can follow us on social media, and if you have any questions, that's my email. It's the generic DSF email. Yeah, thanks for.
So what is your relationship between the quadrille programs for restocking salmon
That,
from Green Pond and White Brook?
I am not entirely sure. In part because I'm super new. I'm a couple months with DSF, but what I do know is that the way that the hatcheries, it's the Peter Gray Parr project is how we go about, I guess, raising salmon for the hatchery. So the salmon are raised in the water of the rivers that they'll ultimately end up back in, which is not, I think, the standard case for that. So the rivers that stock with the hatcheries are specific to Downeast Maine. But as far as where who you're working with, I can get you those answers, or I can't provide them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you in contact with the Belfast residents about the dams at this point?
We have been in touch with them, largely Dwayne, for quite some time. And my understanding is we know that they do not want them. And it's not just as easy as them turning them over. But we are actively in communication with them about the dams. Yeah.
And Sid, you have a question?
Just a comment. Martha and I have the only residential property on the lower reservoir, and as much as we enjoy our access and our view, bottom line is we do not object to removing the dam. So this is one particular area in which you don't have to worry about residents around a reservoir.
Understanding is it's not always that easy. But I appreciate your recognition of, I guess, the broader health of the ecosystem, Sid.
So we have one, thank you, Jill. We have one final activity tonight, right, Corinne? Oh, that's later. That's after everybody's been fed.
Yeah.
My apologies. Okay. So I think that's the business portion of our program tonight. And we hope that it's been educational, occasionally entertaining, and we hope uplifting. I personally feel a lot better than I did when I woke up this morning about the potential in this community, given all of the organizations that are able to do this. And I'll tell you, sneak preview, we do look forward to hearing from Penn Bay waterkeepers once they have concluded, we hope, a successful purchase of the property. I talked to Pete Nichols about it 2 weeks ago, and he said he would be pleased to come and talk with everybody about that. So on that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting, or Janie will, since she's our vice president.
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Corinne?
Seconds? Second. All right, let's eat.
All right, and thank you everyone on the Zoom session. Sid, thank you particularly for signing in from British Columbia.
Yeah. Awesome.